Hey all, Michelle Raza here with the Finding Yourself Book Club. Today we're going to be discussing John Gottman's What Makes Love Last. We've been going over 10 other ways to betray a lover. So we did the overview, just talking about all the 10 different ways. And before this section, we were talking about the descent into betrayal. So that's chapter 3 of John Gottman's book. Please do check out our site. We're at www.findingyourselfsatx.com. There you can take our life balance questionnaire, and your first consult is always free. Contact information is on our website. So, 10 other ways to betray a lover. If you've been watching the other videos on this chapter, we've gone into detail on all of them as well as the overview. But the first is conditional commitment. Then you have an emotional affair, which Gottman calls a non-sexual affair. Lying, and then forming a coalition against the partner. So those are the topics that we've already discussed in the previous videos. Today we're going to talk about absenteeism or coldness. The morning that almost ended Tina's marriage began with her father suffering what would be a fatal coronary. Her husband, Gene, apologized that he couldn't get to the hospital with her because he had a critical meeting. She sat in the waiting room sobbing, and not just over her father's precarious condition. She was in deep emotional pain, but when she called her husband, she got bumped to his voicemail. Tina tried to convince herself that Gene needed to be at that meeting. It was important for their future. She bucked up and didn't let him know how hurt and abandoned she felt. But in a clear example of the Zeigarnik effect, she kept stewing about this unresolved issue, becoming cold and distant from her husband. She turned away during sliding door moments and seemed indifferent to his concerns. It was like she left the marriage. It felt like she was untouchable by me, said Gene. When he asked Tina what was wrong, she always responded, nothing. He attributed the change in his wife to sorrow over losing her dad. Gene made a critical mistake of not putting his wife first at a time of emotional need, but Tina's subsequent coldness put their marriage in danger. Both reactions contributed to the downward spiral that eventually led them to consider separating. In a long-delayed conversation one evening, Tina bridged the breach when she told him how infuriated and rejected she felt by his absence. Her honesty led him to admit haltingly that he had hidden behind his work that day because he felt inadequate to help her cope with her sorrow. He was afraid that he would say the wrong thing. He expressed genuine surprise over how much his actions had hurt her. Although still wounded by his withdrawal, Tina now considered whether it might have been based on love, not selfishness. She agreed to couples therapy, where they were able to repair the gulf between them. Emotional absenteeism doesn't have to be so dramatic. It can be as simple as turning away on a consistent basis when a partner needs emotional support about mundane events, such as a friend standing her up or anxiety over giving a speech. A committed relationship requires being there for each other, both through life-changing traumas and everyday stresses. It also means sharing in your partner's joy when good happens. It's true that couples may have different needs for expressiveness, but in a committed relationship, a calibration occurs in which each learns what the other requires to feel loved, protected, and supported. Not all cases of emotional absenteeism are solvable, however. Some people are just unable and unwilling to express warmth and emotional support. When a partner lacks empathy, the relationship will flounder in time, except in rare cases where both people are happiest in an emotionally distant union. Most of us will feel deep rejection if our partner doesn't express affection, and sex doesn't count if it doesn't include an emotional connection. When you enter a relationship with somebody who lacks empathy, you may assume that your partner is just reserved and will loosen up over time. But he or she does not. Some people have learned to cover up this lack of feeling by imitating the emotions of others. It may take years for the partner to realize the other isn't just the silent type. But eventually, the coldness and pretense of caring come to be recognized as cruelty, the character flaw often intertwined with a need for power and control. Elaine, a stay at home mother, said to her husband in therapy, "It would mean so much to me if you said I was doing a great job with the kids, because I am." Andrew's answer, "No, I can't do that. I don't like compliments. Don't want them, don't give them. That's just who I am. I comment only if something needs fixing. So I'm just not ever going to say that to you." Elaine had to accept that Andrew would never say that he valued her. So the examples here are they're pretty deep, right? Talking about your parent dying and your partner not being there for you, or somebody who absolutely can't give a compliment. But it, more than anything, I think a lot of these, so what Gottman talks about, it's, are you in sync with your partner or not? And if you're not in sync, have you discussed it, and are you both okay with it? So on an emotional level, one of you may be more gushy, maybe more expressive, and the other may be more reserved. And as long as you know, like, they have, I forgot the name of the author, but the 5 love languages, right? There's different ways to express love. It's not necessarily always in words, but if you can see, if you're not a person who expresses love in words, if you can have a conversation with your partner about how you express love, it's a one-time difficult conversation, but then later that might help them understand so that they can see what you're trying to do, and vice versa. If you're someone that is wordy and maybe you're with someone who's not, you can try and look for other signs of love. It can be, they remember to remind you about things, or they schedule appointments for you, or they just check up on you, or they want to know how you're doing. So just that feeling of connection. And then he will go into, in future chapters, one of the basic things that he talks about to build a relationship is called attuning with your partner. And that doesn't mean that you have to be on exactly the same page. It just means that you have to know how they are, how they express their love, and how that is either the same or different from you. So the emotional connection, being cold towards a partner, it honestly typically has more to do with the person themselves and their own background and what they've faced. That could be a coping mechanism for being in a family where you just weren't really allowed to express emotions. And what Gottman calls that is enduring vulnerabilities. All of us come with our baggage of our childhood and our own traumas. They can be major traumas or minor traumas. And so those are the vulnerabilities that you bring into your relationship. And nobody knows you more intimately than your partner. And so that's where your vulnerabilities are going to come out, right? In your interactions with your partner. And either you discuss them and you talk about them and you get attuned to each other, or you don't. And that's when your relationship breaks apart. So being able to talk about the things that bother you, being able to talk when you're not getting your emotional needs fulfilled by your partner, even if they don't reciprocate, right? And this goes back to Gibson stuff. Being able to express yourself regardless of whether the other person is going to be receptive or react appropriately. You need to be able to say your piece and then sometimes let go. So interesting stuff here today. Please do check out our site. We're at www.findingyourselfsatx.com, and look forward to talking with you tomorrow.